I realized that my wife and daughter didn't care about me at all, so I abandoned them. But years later, my cheating wife reached out and begged me to reconcile. 6 months ago, I found evidence of my wife's affair, and over the next 5 days, I realized neither her nor my daughter cared about me. During these 5 days, I was so hurt I couldn't speak a single word, but neither of them even asked if I was okay. On day 6, I snapped and informed my wife in front of our daughter that I knew of her affair. She flat out ignored me and started to explain to our daughter why she cheated. I left the house and drove away, and as I pulled out, I looked through the window. They hadn't even noticed me leaving. It took maybe 15 minutes before my wife, Eve, tried to call me, then call after call after call, then a flood of texts from both of them. I just ignored it and eventually turned the phone off. The next day, I took half of our money out and called my boss. I told him I didn't know when I would be back. He told me if I didn't show up, I would be fired. I just told him okay and hung up. I just didn't care. I went to my wife's affair partner, Adam's house, and his wife opened the door. I gave her a copy of the text messages and told her what Adam and my wife had been up to. I left her crying on the stairs. At the end of the day, I ended up in a cheap hotel at the edge of town. The next few days were kind of a blur. Eve's older brother is a cop named Bob. Bob showed up on the 4th day. I don't know how he found me. He tried to interrogate me, but I didn't say anything. When I didn't engage, he told me I was under arrest and put me in cuffs. However, he didn't take me to the station like I expected. He took me home instead. Bob dragged me into the living room where my wife and daughter immediately started berating me. Still, I said nothing. I just listened in amazement while they told me how terrible this was for them, how terrible I was for making them worry. It went on for a while. In the end, Eve screamed at me, "Say something." I stared at her for a while before calmly saying, "I have nothing to say to you, Eve." Bob freaked out and slammed me against the wall, screaming at me to not talk to his sister that way. I got a lot of satisfaction out of Bob's violent reaction. I don't know why it made me so happy. I was laughing. Bob's wife left him 4 months earlier. I smiled at Bob. "You're pathetic, Bob. Did you do something for your wife to leave you, Bob? Is this why she left you?" He socked me hard, and I fell down. My wife and daughter started screaming their heads off. As I started to get up, I just laughed even harder. I just couldn't help myself. "I am still in handcuffs, laughing." I said, "F you, Bob." He put me out this time. I woke up in the hospital. Eve, Bob, and my daughter were there. They were talking to me. I was too confused to make it out. A nurse appeared and asked them to leave while she was taking my pulse. I told her that my family put me here and that they were not to come anywhere near me. If they came back into the room, I would leave. I would just run away. She argued kind of sternly that running or even getting up was a really bad idea for me, but she would talk to security. I didn't see them again in the hospital. It was bliss. I decided to disappear, to turn into a ghost. I wanted nothing to do with these people ever again. I made a letter to each of them. I warned Bob that if he ever bothered me again, I would report him. I told my daughter that Eve had betrayed me and that she would be without a father from now on. To Eve, I made a longer letter. I tried to be as practical as possible. I told her to sell the house, that I won't be paying the mortgage or utilities anymore. I told her reconciliation or even contact was impossible, especially after she had sent her brother to drag me back and hurt me in front of them. I explained that I won't do anything for her ever again, so if she wants a divorce, she will have to arrange it. I told her I will disappear here, and I don't want to be found. I ended it with, if she interferes with my life again, I will simply end myself. I really regret giving her that last sentence. It's like I let her steal a little bit more of me, like I let her give me a little more pain. In the hospital, I made a plan on how I could disappear. Eve gave the hospital some fresh clothes that they forwarded to me. Then one evening, I just went out the rear fire escape. I triggered some kind of alarm. I was panicking a bit, but thankfully, no one stopped me. I got back to the hotel to pick up my car. I traded it with a small RV and set off. I got a new phone. The only person I called was my father. I told him everything and told him if he gave my new number to anyone, I would become totally unreachable forever. He could call me if he needed to reach me, if I needed to sign something. Other than that, I wanted to be left alone. For the first few months, I grieved the loss of my old life, but I came to realize that I grieved the loss of a fantasy, a memory that only existed in my head. The loving wife and daughter, the family, friends, it was all just an illusion in my head. These people never really cared for me. Over time, I started to rebuild. Only this time, I was a total ghost. I rent a safety deposit box to keep valuables in cash. I do odd jobs for money. I hunt and fish and scavenge. My money consumption is insignificant, so my cash reserves are actually growing. I don't pay taxes. I don't have a bank account. When people ask my name, I tell them to call me Fred. I go out of my way to not contribute to society or anything else, for that matter. All in all, my life is getting better. At least now, no one is using me for nothing but their own benefit while pretending they care about me. I don't know what happened to my wife and daughter, my old friends, or the rest of the family. I don't know if I am divorced now or if I owe child support. I don't know what happened to the house. I don't really care. Update 1. As I was reflecting on everything yesterday, I was starting to experience something similar to the day I tried to confront Eve. The world got muffled. I felt I needed to log off, so I called a hunting friend and asked if he could come over. We talked on the phone until he arrived, and the first thing he did was to confiscate all my ammunition. So, he was pretty worried, I guess. He called my dad and stayed with me until he arrived. I have moved to a different city, so that took over 4 hours. Long story short, my dad arrived, and he took me to see a doctor. As a result, I have been committed to a psychiatric facility. The doctors suspect that I suffer from emotional and psychological trauma, probably depression as well. Apparently, the numbness, extreme desire to self-isolate, strange reactive behaviors like laughing at being physically hurt, nobody loves me feeling, undeserving, reclusive are pretty clear indicators according to the doc. I hope to talk to my daughter in the near future if the counselors say it's okay for me and her, and if she wants to. My dad has talked to her a bit about the situation. He tells me that she loves me and asks for me. My dad is with me for now, and I will be monitored 24/7 for the next few days. They tried some medication, but I had a very negative reaction, so they will try something else tomorrow. Also, Bob somehow found out about me and demed my account and apologized. Eve hadn't told him the real reason I left for the hotel. She had just told him I just drove away, leaving the rest out. Bob told me he had informed his superiors what he had done when he found out. According to him, everyone that should be has been informed. He was suspended and ordered to undergo anger management training. If I submit a complaint, he would be dismissed. He has prepared a full written confession and all the paperwork for me if I choose to do so. All I needed to do was read it, and if I agreed to sign it, he would be dismissed. I decided to call Bob's employer and plead in Bob's case that he continues as a cop. Bob visited me on Thursday. He had prepared all the paperwork for me to file a complaint against him. He made no excuses. He admitted his behavior was completely out of line. He apologized for losing his cool and that it was entirely his fault. He pushed me pretty hard to file against him, actually. But I have been thinking about him. I have seen him throw himself in the path of a sock to protect an old woman. I know a lot of his colleagues, and they always talk about how he will always go that extra mile to help someone. I found out why his wife divorced him as well. Bob doesn't make much, but he donates 10% of his salary and volunteers 3 days a week to help the homeless. Apparently, his ex found this to be unbearable. Bob refused to stop helping, so she divorced him. Bob is a good man. He lost control one time. I lost my way for over a year. Update 2. I have been out of the psych ward since Friday morning. I have been getting a lot of therapy, and I am doing much better. I have daily treatment, but I no longer need to be committed. I suffer the aftereffect of emotional trauma and have mild PTSD. I have talked a lot to my daughter. She tells me she has forgiven me. She never meant to make me feel unappreciated. She loves me. The first few days, I didn't actually believe her, but once I got some perspective, I realized this doubt was all on me. I have apologized more times than I can count. She started telling me to stop apologizing, actually. She has moved away from her mother and is living with my brother and his family at the moment. She gets along really well with his kids, and my brother has told us that she can stay for as long as she wants. I am in no condition to be a full-time parent at the moment, so for now, she will stay with them. My brother has arranged therapy for her, and I will do my best to be the best father I can be from now on. My wife, Eve, has also moved out of the house and is living with her parents. My father has been paying the mortgage for me without me knowing, so the house isn't sold yet. I am not looking forward to going back there to all the memories. I have decided to sell the house and downsize to a tiny home and live a life closer to nature with less stress. I will try to rent or buy a plot of land and live as simply as possible, at least for a while. My daughter loves this idea and has been researching tiny homes like a pro. Adam, the affair partner, is trying to reconcile with his wife and has cut Eve off completely. Eve has been to my dad's house almost weekly, begging for him to contact me and let her talk to me. If what her mother tells me is correct, Eve lost her job and is in a terrible way, barely leaving her room at her parents' house. She is shunned by pretty much everyone, according to her mom. I have found a lawyer today and will start divorce proceedings ASAP. Update 3. My daughter is doing well. The house is sold, and I bought a home where me and my daughter live. It's not a tiny home. It has 2 separate bedrooms and a combined living room kitchen. It's in a secluded location on a forested hillside, and it has a porch outside as big as the house and a wonderful view. I absolutely love the tranquility and the close proximity to nature in our new home. I am divorced or almost divorced. It's just waiting for the formalities now. The expected time frame is 3 months. Soon-to-be ex has been begging me a lot for a second chance, almost daily, but she has not demanded anything from me. She doesn't try to excuse herself. She owns her affair. We used mediation, and she has given me everything, basically all our assets and full custody. The only thing she has asked for is to be allowed to visit often so she can try to repair her relationship with our daughter. She has offered to cook and clean as well, but I don't want to feel like I owe her anything. I will keep the household operational. It's small anyway. My daughter and soon-to-be ex relationship is very strained. We will have to see how it goes. From my perspective, I have told her I want closure, but there is no way of repairing our relationship. We will be co-parents, that's it. I have insisted on split custody since it's cumbersome to undo full custody after the divorce is final. Now that I can think straight, I want our daughter to have a relationship with her mother. I have forgiven her and moved on. I will live my life as I see fit from here on out. My wife is going to counseling. We all are, including family therapy for my daughter's benefit. I am determined to try to make up as much as possible for my daughter for my mistake. I am determined to be a good role model, so I will act exemplary. It's been incredibly hard to deal with the aftermath, but I am finally starting to stabilize.